Good morning, TL Travelers, and welcome back to the TL Travel YouTube channel. If you are new here, you may not know that we have just returned from travel in Mexico. We were exploring in Mexico City as well as spending some time in Puerto Vallarta for my younger sister's wedding. Destination weddings really run in my family. Both my sister and my younger brother got married in Mexico, and my husband Derek and I got married in Costa Rica. So as more photos and videos have been cropping up from my sister's beautiful wedding in Puerto Vallarta, I have also been receiving some questions from you guys about my wedding and what my wedding was like in Costa Rica and how beautiful it must have been, and if there is a wedding video, and a bunch of other things that I'm going to try my very best to explain to you in today's destination wedding horror story time video. So if you love a good fail video, this is the video for you. Be sure to stick around, hit that like and subscribe button, and I'm just going to jump into the story of how my dream wedding day was a bit of a nightmare. So full disclaimer, right up front, I am going to be using the name and probably some photos or video from the resort itself to explain sort of the layout of different things and how everything went down. What I do want to make very clear is that this resort is a beautiful spot. Even after our wedding, I would have recommended it to travelers who were just looking for somewhere to stay, not necessarily somewhere to get married. And officially this resort is now under new management. So no one associated with this story is still working there. And like, it's essentially a different hotel now, just under a new name. So just keep that in mind, because I have absolutely nothing bad to say about the resort itself. I just love it. So let's put that out there and make it clear right from the start. So of course this story begins when Derek and I got engaged. We decided that we wanted a fairly short engagement, and we didn't really know what we were going to do wedding-wise. Derek and his entire family are from out here in Alberta, but myself, my friends and family are all in Ontario, which, while is still in the same country, flights within Canada, if you don't live in Canada or you haven't traveled in Canada, you may not know that like domestic flights here are just as expensive as international flights. And I have a lot of friends and family, Derek has a lot of friends and family, and we were really having an internal struggle about whose friends and family would have to pay money to attend our wedding, and whose friends and family would just like be living in the location where we got married, you know, like how do you choose that? But being travelers ourselves, and after giving it a lot of thought, we realized that for anybody who's going to be flying from anywhere, it's cheaper for them to fly somewhere south than it is for them to fly to either Edmonton or Ontario. And not only is it cheaper, but they would be getting an actual vacation out of it versus having to spend possibly their only vacation days in Ontario or in Edmonton. Hello, plant. So after considering those factors and many more, we decided on Costa Rica as our wedding destination, and we wanted to be somewhere south that was a little bit different from the typical all-inclusive or resort destination. We wanted it to be more of like a jungle type experience, but we wanted to be close to the beach as well, and we wanted some ocean views. So we chose a beautiful resort called Rancho Pacifico, which is in the Uvita area of Costa Rica. It is set so far up in the hills that you get this dense jungle all around you, like cloud forest, beautiful views, but you can also see out to the Whale's Tail Beach, which is the sort of popular national park beach in that area. And then we would also be guaranteed those beautiful views for our wedding day. So I reached out to the hotel to ask if they did destination weddings, and they said that yes, they had done a few in the past and that they were very successful, and that lo and behold, they also had a wedding planner. Now I'm going to use that term very loosely, because eventually we did realize that their wedding planner was in fact just like their general manager, and he had little to no experience planning actual weddings. So that was great, but we will get there. So once we decided that we were going to be having our wedding at Rancho Pacifico, we put down a deposit on the villas that were there right away, because one thing about Rancho is that it only has a specific number of villas. So we would be renting out the entire property for our wedding. There would be no outside guests coming in. But what we wanted to avoid was having like one of the villas booked for our dates, and that just would not be great. So we put down the deposit for the villas, and I sent my sort of initial list of questions for the wedding regarding like prices of smaller things. So things like flowers and food and what types of menu adjustments that we could make, as well as how things would work for, you know, things like music and DJs and just, you know, all of those wedding considerations. The list goes on and on. Now, at first, the general manager, and we're gonna call him Joe, was very responsive to my emails, but not very informative. He would say, oh yeah, I'll figure that out and I'll get that back to you. Or yeah, it's gonna be somewhere in the range of this price and this price, depending on a variety of factors, but he wouldn't really give me what those factors were so that I could make a decision. So it was a lot of like roundabout conversations that never really got to the point of like, this is how much this will cost, or yes, we can do this, or no, we cannot do this. So I'm over here in Canada making a list of all these things that we need to do for our wedding, and I'm really going off of nothing. Luckily though, Derek and I had already planned a trip to Costa Rica for that year, the year that we got engaged. And so our thoughts were, even though we were staying in the northern area, so we were gonna be in Tamarindo, and Uvita is all the way in the south, we thought, okay, if we can get away for a day, it'll be a long drive and a long day, but we could go down there and speak to him in person and really lock these things in. So we made an arrangement to have that happen, and I sent my list ahead of time of all the questions that I would need answered. This was about 2 weeks before we actually arrived at the resort, so that he could get everything sort of figured out, and when we got there, we could have those discussions and, you know, hopefully really lock things in. So while things were moving a little slowly, and that was a little annoying, the disaster had not yet begun. So Derek and I landed in Costa Rica in the Tamarindo area. We got a car rental for one day, and at a peaceful 5 in the morning, we departed for our journey all the way south to Uvita. We had scheduled a time to meet with Joe at the resort, and when we arrived, right on time, he was not there. The receptionist was super friendly. She got us seated in a nice little booth with an ocean view. She brought us some drinks, asked if we wanted any snacks while we were waiting. We had some ceviche, it was lovely. And of course, the time ticked by, and eventually our drinks and our ceviche were done, and we still had to drive all the way back north to Tamarindo, hopefully in the daylight, but as we would soon realize, no, we were gonna have to do that drive in the dark. And yeah, we were still sitting there waiting for Joe. And at a certain point, I could tell that the receptionist was also getting a little bit like annoyed with the fact that we clearly had an appointment and he wasn't there. She was calling him and letting us know, oh, you know, he's 15 minutes out, and then 15 minutes later, oh, he's 30 minutes out, and then 30 minutes later, oh, he's 10 minutes out, you know, one of those things. And when he finally arrived, he sat down in his running gear to let us know that he was so excited to meet us and so sorry that he was late. He was running. But so ridiculous as that seemed to me, I thought, okay, well, let's just move on, because like Derek and I, we have places to be, and obviously he has better things to do. So I pulled out my list to reference against the list that I had sent him, and he asks if he can see it because he doesn't have the list that I sent for him. Fine. So he takes a look at things and he starts talking as if he has never heard any of these questions before. And a lot of these were questions that I had asked multiple times in multiple emails. So he's looking, oh, okay, flowers. Yeah, so I mean, that'll depend on what kind of flowers that you want. And I ask him, okay, well, what are my options? I can find out and let you know. Okay. And then it went on like this for every single question. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll look at that and I'll get back to you. Oh, okay, I'll look into it and I'll get back to you. All right, sure, yeah, no problem. I'll look into it and I'll send you an email. The entire point of Derek and I coming to the resort was to finally get the answers that we needed, and we just got the exact same answers that we had been getting by email all along. But on the plus side, it did give us an opportunity to walk around the resort and really see where we were going to be getting married. I could really get an idea of the space and start to sort of plan out where I wanted different things. So flash forward to many, many months later, I am still trying to drag information out of this wedding planner. So it just got to the point where I decided, all right, at this point I have a general idea of the maximum amount that this wedding could possibly cost. I know that I have transportation figured out for my guests because I did it. I know that I have people meeting them at the airport because I did that. And I know that I have the things like the accommodations booked, my dress, and everything for my bridesmaids, because again, I did that. So I have all of that figured out. We're at a resort, so there's going to be food. I just decided I'm done with it. I'm done dealing with him. I'm just going to trust that he knows what he's doing. I'm triggered. So I put my trust in Joe that a wedding would happen, and fun fact, it did in fact happen, so props to Joe. But I was just kind of done dealing with things that were out of my control, and at the end of the day, I was not going to ruin my own wedding stressing about my own wedding. You know what I mean? That was sort of the mindset that I gave myself. It's one day, and it's gonna happen regardless. Friends and family are gonna be there. That's what matters. So we arrive at the resort the day before the wedding, and up comes the topic of setting up the wedding ceremony. So the way that the resort was set up at that time was that they had a restaurant area where the walls of the restaurant came to a point, and then out at the end of that point, you could see an entire expansive view of the jungle on one side and then all of the ocean on the other. They also had a pool that was adjacent to the restaurant that had steps down into it, and then at the back side of the pool, there was like this wall where a waterfall would usually come down. Now, what the wedding planner was trying to convince me to do was to let them empty the pool and have the ceremony in the pool. So your guests would sort of be like along the steps, and then you would get married in the empty pool with that wall behind you, which I guess they had done before in the past, but I had two thoughts on the matter. First thought was that if we get married in front of that wall, you can't see the ocean or the jungle, which was the whole point of getting married at this resort in the first place. The second thing is that if it rains, we're just standing in the bottom of a pool collecting water around our feet. Why? Now, Joe reassured me time and time again that there was no way that it was gonna rain on my wedding day. It wasn't rainy season, it wasn't gonna rain, and it would be just so beautiful to empty the bottom of the pool. I put my foot down and I said, no, absolutely not. We wanna get married in the restaurant. This is how we want it laid out. We want the aisle coming from the entrance of the restaurant to the point, have everybody sitting facing the point, and to have the ocean view in the background. I think part of his reasoning for wanting us to have the ceremony in the pool was so that they wouldn't have to work so hard to put the tables back after the ceremony, like between the ceremony and the dinner. I think it was more just kind of like a laziness thing, if we're being honest. But yeah, I'm glad that I put my foot down, because of course it rained, but the rain was the least of our issues. So the wedding day rolls around, and this is really the first time that I have heard from Joe with any real concrete information. And basically the real concrete information is just the things that I wanted that weren't going to happen. So first he let me know that the person that he had hired to play guitar while we were coming down the aisle was not available. So the first order of business was for one of my bridesmaids to use the iPod and her cell phone to try and find an instrumental version of just really any song that sounds great for me to walk down the aisle to. Okay, cool. Then he brings in the flowers, letting me know that he was such a hero that he drove all the way to San Jose to find a florist who could make these beautiful bouquets for me and my bridesmaids, and that he drove them all the way back, all by himself, here, so that I could have flowers on my wedding day. What a hero. I open up the box. Not even remotely what we had discussed, which, okay, fine. It's just flowers. That's fine. And again, at this point, I had decided that I was just going to roll with it. I was in no way going to let my wedding day be ruined by all of this. And there was no turning back. This was my wedding day. This is what was happening. So I was just going to accept it. Okay, cool. We found a song for me to walk down the aisle to. We have accepted that the flowers are, frankly, a little bit weird, but whatever. And then, for whatever reason, they set up the area for the ceremony with all of the chairs facing the aisle. Like, have they never attended a wedding ever. And at first I was thinking like, maybe this is a cultural thing. Maybe this is how they have weddings in Costa Rica. But it has been confirmed that no, that is not the situation. So my mother, bless her heart, ran out, changed all of the chairs, had everything set up. Really, we should have just put this whole wedding together ourselves, but that's neither here nor there. So she set up the ceremony so that it looked like a ceremony, and so that our guests could, watch the ceremony, and that was my wedding morning. So as you can imagine, there were a number of other tiny little things that didn't go quite as planned throughout the day. I'm not gonna get into the specifics of each and everything because we would literally be here for hours. But by the time it came time to get married, I was just ready to do it and start the party. So the ceremony itself went smoothly. There were really no problems after that, except for the fact that our cocktails, we had specifically ordered like a specialty cocktail and had to pay for a full barrel of that to be made for our cocktail hour. For whatever reason, those cocktails just didn't go out during cocktail hour, which I'm only mentioning because that sort of comes back around later on in the story. But that didn't come out. But other than that, everything was great. We got all of our photos done, and despite the rain, everything was beautiful. We had chosen a photographer specifically based on the fact that they had beautiful photos, both in the daylight and in the dark and in the rain. That's something, if you are getting married in a tropical country, spend the money to get a photographer who can take photos in all conditions, because I know for a fact that if we had not picked the photographer that we picked, and I will link his information down below because he was amazing, our photos would have been an absolute nightmare. And at the end of the day, other than the fact that I was able to marry the man of my dreams, the photos were really the only other like really great thing, really great memory that came out of that wedding. Other than the family aspect of it, when it comes to the wedding, the photos were really the big takeaway. So hot tip, invest in a good photographer. But all of those things went off without a hitch. And then dinner was over and it was time for speeches. So basically we had decided that we didn't want to do speeches at our wedding. Derek's parents did a quick little, welcome to the family for me, and my parents said welcome to the family, and just kind of did a little, said a little something, but there were no speeches in the typical sense, until Joe, our wedding planner, drunk as a skunk, decided that he had something to say. And I will go on record as saying that, maybe he meant well. That's fine. But at this point, I had gotten over everything. I was over the fact that he didn't respond to my emails. I was over the fact that he did not give me the things that I had been promised. I was over the fact that he just was an utter annoyance, and that probably if he had have just said from the start, oh, I can't plan a wedding, you can have it here, but you're gonna need to plan everything, that things would have just been easier because I would have just done it. I was over it all. Then he stands up. Starts off by thanking everybody for coming. What a beautiful wedding it was. That he had planned the wedding. Okay, every little disaster that you see here was his. But then he says that this wedding, though, would never have come together without the bride. Me. I'm thinking, okay, yeah, that's true. Thank you for acknowledging, but no. Then he goes on to say that he has never met a bride who has so much to say and who asks so many questions and who is so persistent and gets so angry, and that sometimes I would have to yell at him to get anything done. And so for that reason, this wedding never would have happened without me. You know when someone gives you the most backhanded compliment that you've ever heard? Well done, Joe. So, okay, maybe now you're thinking, is it possible that we are listening to a Bridezilla tell their side of the story? And I would like to go on record as saying, no. I am a reasonable human being. If you know me or if you knew me in person, you would know that I put up with a lot. And I do my very best to see two sides to every story. I did not start getting frustrated with this wedding planner regarding the answers and, you know, costs for things until I was 2 months out from my wedding. 8 weeks before our wedding, we had paid for all of our accommodations. We had paid for things that we didn't even know what we were paying for, and we still had a list of things where we had no idea if they were coming, no idea what they were going to cost, and Joe literally stopped responding. So the point where I lost my temper was 8 months after our first conversation, 8 months after flying down to get answers and not getting any answers. And when he referred to me as a bride who had to yell to get her way, I never yelled at him once. I put my foot down at a certain point regarding the fact that I didn't want to get married in the bottom of a pool, and I sent one email where I expressed that I was both angry and upset by how he had handled the situation. But I was never rude, I was always kind, and I always gave him the benefit of the doubt when he literally never deserved it. This frustration here, this is as angry as I have ever gotten at anyone outside of my immediate family. So, you may be thinking, okay, this destination wedding disaster is finally over. Everything has been handled. The day is done. Joe has made his incredibly insensitive speech and the bride is sufficiently mortified. But it did not end there, because when Joe, the general manager of the resort, realized that multiple guests at our wedding were photographers, some of them with large followings, he decided that he was going to do a giveaway. A giveaway where everybody entered their best photos of the resort, that whether they won this contest or not, the resort would be free to use, copyright free, for anything that they chose. And the winner of this giveaway would receive a bottle of wine that I had paid for my guests, that never went out on the tables, because when we were supposed to be drinking wine at dinner, they were serving the cocktail that never went out at cocktail hour. So not only did this man essentially do everything in his power to consciously or unconsciously just leave my wedding day in shambles, he then tried to use our guests for professional, copyright-free advertising material for the resort under the pretense that they would win a prize that I had paid for. So that right there is my experience of us planning our wedding in beautiful Costa Rica with a wedding planner that planned nothing. And I will say that having the attitude of just accepting the fact that things are gonna go wrong on your wedding and not letting it ruin your day is the only thing that got me through. Because I do still look back at our wedding so fondly, and I have so many amazing memories of Derek and I, and of, you know, spending time with our friends and family, and just all of that together was so great. So I don't want you guys to think that I'm like, oh, our wedding was a disaster and now I hate it, because I don't. I loved every single minute of spending that time with my friends and family and seeing our families come together, and it was amazing and it was so worth it. But like, would I recommend that specific experience to anyone? No. Absolutely not, ever. Now, I do have a potential part 2 to this story that is completely unrelated to the hotel and to the wedding planner, and that is the fact that we hired a wedding videographer to film our spectacular day, and still have never seen anything from that. So obviously that story is an entire other thing on its own, but if you are interested in hearing about it, I would love for you to let me know in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up so that I know that you want to hear about it, and potentially I will share that whole other tragic disaster in another video. But until then, I'm just gonna leave you guys here because I'm sure this video has been long enough. If you have had a wedding disaster, I would love for you to just let me know down below so that I don't feel so alone. And yeah, hit that like and subscribe button if you love travel content or if you love these types of story times. And until I see you guys in my next video, stay great, travel safe, and I'll see you then. Bye guys.